accelerating entrepreneurial success. That's what we're here to talk about each and every day. And I reach out to our network of just unbelievably talented individuals that have helped me personally, as well as are helping, really entrepreneurs achieve even higher levels of success. And this is about entrepreneurs who are successful already. And they have great businesses, and they're not in business just for business sakes. They're in business to build great qualities of life, not only for themselves, enlightened self-interest, but also for all their stakeholders, their clients, their customers, their teammates, their partners, their investors. And today I've got a special treat for you. I have an extremely dear friend who understands you and me. He understands the mind of the entrepreneur. I've had the opportunity to have him come to my mastermind group and meet many of my top clients, financial entrepreneurs largely. And I got to tell you, he knocked it out of the park. There was no one I've ever invited back a second time. Ned was the first one to do that. And Ned, first of all, Ned Hallowell, the Hallowell Centers. Ned, thank you for taking the time to join me today.
It's wonderful to be with you, John. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Well, and I had to. I didn't have any choice. I wanted to share you with, this community that we're building of very talented entrepreneurs. And what really happened when I brought, I immediately upon meeting you, I went, you were at a Joe Polish's mastermind group, and
Yes.
you were presenting, and the second you got off stage, I walked over to you and I go, Ned, would you come to my group? And I had only heard, maybe a half an hour. And what I loved is you were sharing two things. One, the mind of the entrepreneur, how we think, and you gave me some great framing. And then the second also, really our clients, our customers. And we've got entrepreneurs that make widgets. We've got entrepreneurs doing deals. We've got all kinds of things. But Ned, help me out. What is this strange thing, the mind of the entrepreneur?
Well, it's a very special kind of mind, and in many ways, it's America's gift to the world because we have so many in this country. Our gene pool is loaded for this kind of mind. And if you think about it, think of who colonized this country and who came over in the waves of immigration, and it self-selected. It pulled for a certain kind of person, a dreamer, a visionary, a maverick, an independent-minded person. An inventor, a creator, a doer, above all a doer who loves freedom and independence, who wants to create and grow and build. And that's in the blood, in the genes of the entrepreneur. And as I say, in many ways, it's the American edge. It's the American gift to civilization. It's people say, isn't everyone like that? No, not everyone is like that. Some people are quite the opposite. They love security. They love predictability. They want a guaranteed income. They want guaranteed benefits.
And there's some out there that are criminals, and the cops in New York are going by and everything.
Exactly.
The power is
they're chasing down some entrepreneur.
Yeah, they went the wrong direction. But the help me better understand as we get the full sound effects of New York here in your New York office. And you're in New York and Boston, and today in New York. And the amazing thing I always think of is, I talk about this with my wife and my friends, that sometimes I feel like I'm wired wrong, and other entrepreneurs I talk with, they feel this way. It's kind of, the drive, and particularly once you've had enough success that I was with a group this last Friday, very successful investment bankers, venture capitalists, and we were sitting around at my house, and we're building some new M&A kind of program for the industry. And somebody brought up, as the world's turned upside down, that normally what it used to be is that the rich were the idle rich, and everyone in this room didn't need to work, and they're working harder than ever. And what happened to the world?
Yeah. Well, in the case of the entrepreneur, that's what I include myself, it's what we love to do. We don't want to retire. We don't want to be idle. We don't want to chill out on vacation, once in a while maybe. But But we are at our best when we're working. You see, work and play very much merge for us. And given our druthers, that's what we'd like to be doing, making something grow. It's a tremendous turn on. The money is really not the chief reward. The chief reward is seeing an idea take shape and become real and grow.
Well, and Ned, you know it's not a straight line to that idea and grow. And, you know, entrepreneurs, by the very nature, we have ambitious goals. We want to make an impact in the world. We want to have very successful businesses that really take care of our clients, our customers, and, you know, build great lives for everybody involved. And it's not linear by any means. And there's a lot of bumps in the road. And oftentimes, you know, I see entrepreneurs just beat the heck out of themselves. You know,
Yes.
how do you deal with these ups and downs in life? I mean, nobody gets out of life unscarred at times.
Yeah, no, and particularly entrepreneurs. Particularly, it's a roller coaster ride for sure. You know, you make it, you lose it, you make it, you lose it, and that's the typical story, not the unusual story. The way you get through it, and this is one of my key principles, really take home points. The shock absorber, if you will, for those inevitable disappointments and sometimes colossal disappointments, is the force of what I call connection. That's a connection to friends, to family, to faith in God or some spiritual reality, connection to nature. It can be connection to a piece of music. You know, you get bummed out, you listen to Bruce Springsteen or what have you. Connection to a dog, you know, or any kind of connection. And the more you have, the better. They will sustain you when those inevitable disappointments come. Woe unto the person who has not cultivated, nourished, and taken care of his or her connections, because then when the bad times hit, that's when, you know, really bad outcomes occur.
You know, and Ned, help, you know, the viewers and listeners. How do you know, the connections today's world? I mean, you know, one of the things that's so great is you and I are connecting. I'm in Silicon Valley, you're in New York on Skype. You know, I count you as a really good friend, mentor, and, you know, just
And me toward you, exactly.
well, and we've got a great relationship. But, you know, the reality is that, you know, more and more, you know, business is getting complicated. We're focused on that. We're bombarded with all type of things, and we lose a lot of this human contact out there and that connection. And, you know, it's easy to get alienated in today's world. How does an entrepreneur deal with that?
Well, it's a very important point, John, extremely important point. We live in a modern paradox. We are super connected like never before in human history. It's our defining achievement, our electronic communications technology. It's magnificent. We're using it right now. But the paradox is, as we have super connected electronically, we've been disconnecting interpersonally. And that is very dangerous. However, it's very solvable. Unlike many global problems, this one you can solve. And it's simply a matter of taking back control you've inadvertently given away. So make a point of having family dinner, or regular lunch with a friend, or date night with your significant other, or regular trips to a ball game with your children, or a cookout, or a picnic, or a celebration on Sunday or Saturday or Sabbath, or whatever it is. Build it into not every year, every month, but every week, and hopefully every day, moments of significant connection where you stoke up on what I call the other vitamin C, vitamin connect. And if you get daily doses of that, it's amazing. Not only will you be happier, more fulfilled, you'll be more productive, and you'll live longer. And we have studies to prove all of that.
No, I mean, it's one of the things I've taken to heart. It's so easy to put in countless hours in your business, and if you, you know, most of us schedule our lives, and it's okay to schedule those connection moments because that's the only way they happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. You know, you say, well, it's not very spontaneous. Well, it's a lot better than never doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, and help me with focus. I want to go to focus, and then I want to go to, you know, kind of how you got to this, because I know you didn't, you know, you didn't wake up at 4 years old and say, I'm going to help entrepreneurs really deal with these challenges. But let's go to focus. I mean, you know, one of the things I really enjoy, you know, is research and some new research on the affluent, and we do a tremendous amount. And we're just putting together some numbers, and this is secondary. I'm pulling it together from other sources, but the average individual gets 4,000 marketing messages a day. Affluent individual, someone with over $1 million of financial assets. The entrepreneurs, I mean, they're just being bombarded with messaging outside, but then they've got the line outside their door of people that want to get to them. They've got, they want to build in these connections, and then they, get the shiny new toy syndrome too. And how do we keep focus in a world that doesn't want us to have it, Ned?
You have to be intentional. You really have to prioritize. You have to decide what matters most, and then insist upon making time for it. It's that simple, but very difficult, because you are being, as you say, seduced in so many directions, way more than ever before in human history. There's just a dazzlement of temptations, and they're all bright, shiny. They're all fun. And if you're not careful, you become a victim of your own enthusiasms, your own interests, your own seducibility. So you have to really say, okay, what matters most? And maybe it's time with my kids or my spouse, as it is with me, or maybe it's time in the gym, or maybe it's time spiritual practice, or maybe it's a special time reserved for thinking. Tim Armstrong, the CEO of AOL, who brought AOL out of the doldrums, he said the key to turning it around was he required all his executives to have what he called 10% think time. They had to spend 10% of every week doing nothing but thinking. 4 hours of thinking a week, at least, were required. And he said it was the key to turning that around. And he said he thinks that's the strategic advantage for the coming years, people who are intentional, who make time for what matters most. Now, it's not up to me to tell you what should matter most, but I am telling you, if you don't take your time, it will be taken from you. It's a law of modern life. It's like a law of physics. If you don't take your time, someone else or something else will take it from you, and you'll be left saying, where did the time go?
Yeah, it's just, and it does go. I mean, we all have, a finite 168 hours a week. We get to decide how to allocate it. Yeah, as much as I'd like to stretch it a little.
Stretch it, exactly.
It doesn't happen. Now, tell me, a little of your journey. I mean, how did you get where you are today? I mean, you're one of the most recognized, talented individuals, just focused on this area. I mean, and there really isn't that many people working with us entrepreneurs.
Right. Well, it was, like you say, a zigzag, not a straight line. I came out of medical school thinking I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon, and then at the last minute changed my mind and became a psychiatrist instead.
Yeah.
And then by accident, I became a child psychiatrist, and that's when I learned about this thing called attention deficit disorder and realized I had it myself. And the first part of my career was spent diagnosing, treating ADD. And I wrote a book about it that became pretty well known called Driven to Distraction. And then as I was working with folks with ADD, I realized over and over again, they tended to be entrepreneurial, the adults. And so I began, and then I met this wonderful man named Dan Sullivan, who runs something called Strategic Coach, where he brings entrepreneurs in to his marvelous magical kingdom up in Toronto and trains them. And I went up and visited, and I realized, boy, this is the best outpatient treatment program for ADD going. So I realized that
I am in that program too.
I beg your pardon?
I am in that program as well. So it's needed.
Yeah, well, it's and then Dan and I put our heads together and we said, it's like the blind man with the elephant. You're describing the entrepreneur, I'm describing ADD, and they're the same. They're the same. So I said, gosh, this term attention deficit disorder, I never liked it anyway. It's not a disorder, it's a trait, and it's not a deficit, it's an abundance. So I said, why don't we just call it the mind of the entrepreneur? And then my model that I use to explain ADD really fits the entrepreneur. Namely, you've got a Ferrari engine for a brain with bicycle brakes. And I said, I'm a brake specialist. And usually the work that entrepreneur needs to do to maximize productivity is strengthen his controls or her controls, strengthen the brakes, so you can take full advantage of that Ferrari brain. So I start off, as a specialist in ADD, and then I realized through Dan Sullivan and others, Joe Polish and others, that there's this great overlap between adult ADD and the mind of the entrepreneur. And then I say, guess what? This is not a disorder. This is the American edge, as I now call it. This is our great gift to civilization. This is what we do nationally, and I'll include Canada because Dan's up there, and the Canadians have a lot of this going too. We do better than anyone else in the world.
Yeah, I want to stop there just for a second and make sure everybody got this, because many entrepreneurs could certainly be diagnosed with what sometimes people refer to as a disease, even ADD, and you're saying that not only is it not a disease, it's a trait that gives you a competitive advantage. The key, though, is to harness it.
Exactly. Now, exactly. That's an important point, because if you don't harness it, that's the prison population. So that's what's so interesting about this condition. It can go one extreme way or the other. You imagine a Ferrari with no brakes, it's going to crash and burn. And that's what happens. The prison population, these people can't control their passions. They can't control their actions. And that's the prison population, it's the addicted population, it's the unemployed, the multiply divorced. It can ruin your life. But if you learn how to control it, it can take you to the absolute top. I can name you Nobel Prize winners, Academy Award winners, Pulitzer Prize winners, self-made millionaires, billionaires, you name the top of any profession, any field, I can name you someone who has this trait. But I can take you to Rikers Island and show you a lot of people who have it too. So it's important to learn how to strengthen your brakes if you've got a Ferrari for a brain.
So help me with, the obvious question is, I love having Ferraris, bright red Ferrari. There's some great ones there. They make great cars, and I do love cars, racing around the track and so on. I do know the challenge when brakes go out personally, and it's ugly, okay? It's very ugly. So how can we harness that energy, that refined elegance that everyone is capable of, and actually, keep on track with whatever track we're trying to, keep the shiny side up type thing?
Yeah. Well, it begins by understanding it. And oftentimes entrepreneurs and people with this massively powerful brain, they don't want to listen to anybody else. They don't want to get any help. They don't want to learn about it. They say, I'll do it my way. Get off my back. I'll do it my way. And they become very headstrong, very, very help rejecting, if you will. And they often say, I'd rather fail doing it my way than succeed, taking advice. Well, that's unfortunate, because that's the major reason I see people crash and burn. They won't accept any help. It gets offered to them usually, particularly as they start getting into some kind of trouble, and they just become stubborn. They dig in and say, I'll do it my way, get off my back, I'm my own man, I'm my own woman, I've done it my way, and blah, 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 and they sink. So rule number one is be willing to take advice from someone you trust, who has your best interests at heart. And then, if you will, strengthening your brakes is not that difficult once you're willing to take advice.
Well, it's amazing when I have somebody in the race car with me that's a professional driver, and they point out very quickly what you're doing wrong, which is, it's so easy to believe you're much more talented than you are in certain situations, or you don't see. And that's one of the reasons why we created Accelerating Entrepreneurial Success, is to network. And this is it's a virtual connection, but of like-minded, very successful entrepreneurs. But at the same time, you want to create groups either that you're involved, locally, or Joe Polish, I'm a member of his mastermind group, phenomenal. Dan Sullivan, I'm in his coaching program, and I have my own mastermind group as well. And we need these connections.
Oh, huge, John, huge. Wherever you find them, these connections are worth their weight in gold. And whatever you pay for it, it's well worth it, because you don't even know what you're getting there. You're getting just the benefit of each other's experience, wisdom, and just the positive energy you get is very catalyzing of your own stuff, and the sum is so is so much greater than each individual part. So groups are the way of the future, and not corporations necessarily, but the kind of groups you're talking about.
There is a difference with us.
Yeah.
You know, when everybody's worried, particularly if you're at a high level in a corporate, you know, if you're close to the flame, if you will, you know, you can always be taken out back and shot for no reason. And so there's a whole different mentality here. You can be at risk. And I'll tell you, one of the things I love is people sharing ideas of what they're thinking about doing. And I mean, there's been some multi-million-dollar investments. People have been saying, hey, I'm going to do this. And they're really dumb and they're not thought out and they would be disasters. And on the other hand, there's some really great ideas that are phenomenal, and you know, strategic relationships come out or ideas of how to accelerate it, but you've got to be open.
Exactly. I mean, that's open is so key, and you know, pride goeth before destruction is so true. You know, I learned early on in medicine, you know, the interns who were dangerous were the ones who wouldn't listen to the nurses. I learned first day of internship, listen to the nurses, you know, and don't be so proud just because you're an MD. That nurse can save your butt and save the patient's life. Listen to people who have experience. Listen to the guy in the car next to you who's been around that track more than you've been. And some of us are just, you know, we're just too stubborn to do that, and to our own peril.
Well, and I always remember how I was. I'd started a few businesses when I was in my late 20s, and I was a heck of a lot smarter then than I am now.
Isn't it funny?
Yeah, and so one of the things.
There was a time when we knew everything, John.
Yeah, I know. It was phenomenal. Let's go. One of the features we have on the program is the app of the day. Ned, is there an app that you're thinking of that would be really helpful for the entrepreneurs?
Well, I designed one after I wrote my book, Crazy Busy, sort of about managing the multiple inputs of modern life, schedules, and I made an app called Crazy Busy, which you can download for free. And it includes one feature that I particularly like. You can, by inputting 3 variables, you can calculate a worth it factor. So if there's something you're contemplating doing, I invite you to enter 3 variables and it'll spit out a worth it factor. And these days, there's so many things that are worth it, you need to grade them. How worth it is it? And so this little app will give you in seconds, you can get that. And it's got a bunch of other features too.
I will be downloading it in a few minutes. You've never told me that one, I don't think. So I will get that. And everybody that's watching this, if you're on the video podcast or if you're in the audio listening to us, go ahead and get that, because I'm pretty sure everyone on is crazy busy. Now, Ned, help me out. You've got tremendous experience working with entrepreneurs. I mean, you and I have worked together on a number of projects. I know you've worked, Dan Sullivan, Joe Polish, and others, and as I have too. And so you're so well connected with so many entrepreneurs. What would be the one thing that jumps out at you, that would be the entrepreneur idea of the day that would help the entrepreneurs go ahead and accelerate their success, do well by their clients, their customers, and by doing well, realize that value creation?
Well, let me give you 2. Number 1 is never worry alone. People get into trouble and screw up when they worry alone, because when you worry alone, you globalize, you awfulize, you activate your worst self, you tend to self-sabotage, you forget your power, you heighten your vulnerability, and a lot of it's going on these days. A lot of people are worrying alone for reasons we've talked about. Get on the phone, talk to someone. You don't even have to talk to them about the problem. You can just say, what you up to? Get input, connect. In other words, that's really my solution to so many things. So rule number 1, never worry alone. And then rule number 2, and again, entrepreneurs tend to want to do it all. Don't waste your time trying to get good at what you're bad at. Delegate that. Do what you're good at. It sounds so obvious, but I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I see, they're taking it upon themselves to get good at what they're bad at. Once you get out of school, don't do that anymore. Go with what you're good at. Work in your sweet spot, the combination, the overlap of what you love to do, what you're good at doing, and what someone will pay you to do, or what advances the mission. Delegate the rest. Hire it out. that's working smart. And the difference between working smart and working hard, that's one of the crucial differences. So those two bits of advice: never worry alone, and number two, work in your sweet spot. Do what you're good at, and delegate, hire out the rest.
Well, and I mean, I just had a situation yesterday, as a matter of fact. I had to make an extremely challenging decision, and quite honestly, I was tempted not to make it, and it needed to be made. And I've got some great, senior people that I'm very good friends, and I ran it by them one more time, gave them how I would rationalize making the wrong decision, quite honestly, and they just kind of called me on it, and that worrying alone, it's just so foolish. I mean, Ned, I think, I remember the first time you said that, and it's one of those blindingly obvious things that we wake up at 2 a.m. and, don't, on stuff that is important, but try to solve it ourselves, and just having a sounding board. Oftentimes the friend doesn't even have to say anything.
No, exactly. Just sit there. Exactly.
Well, let me go with the takeaways that I'm walking away, and I'd like you to add some color to these too, Ned, because I think they're so valuable. I mean, they normally say only 3 takeaways, but I got a bunch here. I mean, number 1 is vitamin C. I love that connection, and the reality, if we need connections in today's world, it's the more I do that, the ability to grow exponentially. So forget about, for most of you, if you've got a good business already, the connections to the right people, not only are they going to be satisfying socially, quality of life, and so on, but it's going to make things happen. So vitamin C, number 1. Second, the Ferrari and the bicycle, that combination. It's just so important that we recognize that as entrepreneurs, and be intentional about it, to understand it, the focus. And then one of my favorite is that not trying to be all things. Nothing great is ever accomplished by one individual, and it's much like we're doing a video podcast today. As soon as it's done, I drop it in Dropbox and it's edited. I did edit one time. I saw that as a complete. I mean, we would have only one podcast if that were the case. Recognize your weaknesses. Don't work to have very strong weaknesses at the end of your life. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Ned, what did I miss out of those? I mean, those are great pearls of wisdom you're sharing with us, and I want to make sure everybody gets that.
Yeah, those are wonderful. Yeah, I love the way you put it. Don't die with very strong weaknesses.
Well,
really, and it's more fun. Not only will you do much better, but it's a whole lot more fun to work within your strengths. And the other thing about connection, it's one of the very few things in life that's really good for you, that's also fun, and it's free, and it's infinite in supply. The sad part is people don't take it seriously enough. If you took it seriously and got your vitamin C as much as you went to the gym even, you'd be amazed at not only how much more productive you'd be, but how much happier you'd be.
Yeah, I mean, we live in such a great world. It's so crazy not to take advantage of it, and
Yes.
and the ability to get together with friends, business associates, our significant others. It
Yes.
is phenomenal. Well, let me do this. I'm going to put up real quick, Ned, your website again, and definitely a great resource. Ned is phenomenal. If you're ever looking for a keynote speaker that understands the top issues and challenges, not only the challenges of entrepreneurs, but actually how they solve those. I mean, Ned's there, and I would encourage you to reach out to him. Ned, thank you again for sharing your pearls of wisdom.
Thank you so much, John. It's a pleasure being with you, and I know your audience, and I really love them. They're the people who are making the world great.
Well, and let's, everyone out there, our clients and customers are counting on us, all those future ones we have to inspire. Make sure to check out Ned's website. Also go to the Accelerating Entrepreneurial Success website. That's AES Nation. We're building a big community so that we can do and leverage that vitamin C. Thank you, Ned.
Thank you, John.